This is Hard Parking, sponsored by Right Hunt and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm your host, Jhae Pfenning, recording from my home studio in Gilbert, Arizona. Just got back from Future Collector Car Show. It was a great event. I will recap that in a few moments. But I will say that on my way back, because I forgot to do it last week, I did go to Dairy Queen and I ordered a Blizzard. And just like Bob Marshall said, Mr. Bob Chat, before they handed it to me, they did kind of the quick upside down flip of it to show you that it's not going to fall out. But she did it so fast. Like, I was expecting them to turn it upside down for like a second and then flip it over, but it was almost like a quick upside down and then back. But I was satisfied. That's what they're supposed to do. I really didn't even want it. I ate it anyway. And Tesla, in case you've been sleeping under a rock, is in the news. And I'll tell you why after this word from 4Wheel Online. For over a decade, 4Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They are dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any maker model on the road. The truck products cover everything to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. Visit them online at 4Wheel Online. I think when I've mentioned Tesla before on this podcast, maybe it sounds negative. I don't have anything against Tesla. I don't have anything against Elon Musk. As I've said before, I don't think Elon Musk is a car guy. I don't think Tesla is a car company. He's a transportation guy, and Tesla is a transportation company. That's my opinion. Some people agree with it. Some people think I'm nuts because they make cars. But that doesn't make you a car person just because you make cars. The argument is easy to make when it comes to the build quality and what Tesla's set out to actually do. They reinvent what it is to travel, to be transported. Eventually, you're just like the Waymo cars, and Cruise is a brand. There's these vehicles that essentially drive themselves. Tesla, once again, and regardless of what you think about Elon Musk, there's a lot of controversy these days about him owning Twitter/X and misinformation and should it be censored and all that good stuff. But we don't talk about that here. But unless you're sleeping under a rock, Tesla had 3 major things happen this weekend. One night, they released their Robovan, which was the surprise of the night. They also unveiled the Optimus robot. So let's talk about the Tesla van really quick. The Robovan, I think it's not coming out right now, but it's this weird. You have to look it up. You look up Robovan. It looks like a futuristic bus with no wheels. Or actually, no, it looks like part of a speed train. And so they're said that this vehicle could carry up to 20 people or be used to transport goods. So people are goods, transportation, that's just like I said, they're in the transportation industry. This little excerpt that I'm going to read is from theverge.com. The Robovan is what's going to solve for high density. So if you want to take a sports team somewhere, or you're looking to get the cost of travel down 5-10 cents a mile, then you can use a Robovan. So essentially, in reading that, it's taking away the private executive buses, essentially. So, if you go to the airport, you travel, and you can rent a executive transport, and they usually show up in like a Tahoe or Suburban or something really nice, and it always costs like 4 times as much as just taking a taxi. That's what this sounds like for me. Essentially very expensive private transportation for groups of people. So that is the Robovan. Feel free to look it up. It's going to tell you a lot more than I did. Let's get to the Tesla Optimus robot, because it's very iRobot-ish. It actually reminded me a lot of the Honda Asimo, which is a very expensive robot that I heard over in Japan. When you visit the Honda headquarters, you're greeted by these Asimo robots, and they can bring you drinks. They can take you to your appointment. They walk really weird. You can look those up as well. That's ASIMO. But these Optimus robots, I watched a demo on them. I saw one making a drink. And so that's the future. Elon Musk was saying that everybody in the future, and they're about $30,000 is what they're estimating, everybody in the future could have one of these robots with their family. What's the name of the robot on the Jetsons? The lady, the maid? Maybe it's one of those, because they were showing the robot putting groceries away, preparing food. They said that the robot can babysit. It's a bunch of super weird stuff. I don't know. Like, how do you guys feel about pretty much a life-size robotic companion that has a voice? You can give it a voice. Part of me thinks it's super cool. Of course, we think that they're going to become self-aware because of all the science fiction movies, and they're going to eradicate humans because humans are the biggest threat to this planet, as they say in every movie like this, as they say in Terminator. I think I said before I got done watching the Terminator X animated series, and the AI, when trying to be convinced as to why they should help humans out, because humans have a history of being destructive and we're the biggest threat to the planet. And so I understand that's the risk. That's what everybody's so scared about. I don't know. I think for everything that's useful to us, it also has the ability to get weaponized, because at the end of the day, fewer people get killed in war and you just have a machine. There's a lot of scary stuff they're doing right now. Kind of creepy. So I understand that, the weaponization of the technology. We're doing it already. But I don't know how I feel about this. And I'm curious of how long it's going to be. Obviously, it's going to be very expensive. Even $30,000, that's more than a lot of vehicles these days. Would you be down for a $30,000 robot if it can do all the little stuff around the house? What if they had a sale and there's 2 of them? What if you can get a bundle of 3, a holiday bundle of 3 of these Optimus robots, and you just sit on your ass and watch football all weekend while one's cleaning the pool, one's mowing the lawn, one's bringing you beer and popcorn and chicken wings? I think I'd sign up for that. And last, certainly not least, I guess this isn't technically Tesla, but it's his SpaceX. So they had a successful test of the Mechazilla, which is a giant, and you may not have heard about this, but it's a giant contraption designed to catch the heavy boosters that kind of fall off of their SpaceX ships. So the heavy booster, which weighs, 30 tons, comes falling down almost at the speed of sound. And what happens is it's a controlled fall. They turn on the boosters, which slows it down. And then they position it and steer it as it lands into these giant arms. And so they did that, and it was successful. And that's a big deal, big success for technology moving forward. And the possibilities are endless, because pretty big event, pretty big weekend for Elon Musk. Well, as promised, we are being joined by a good football knowledge friend of mine, Q. You guys have talked to Q, hasn't been on in a long time. It's funny, and I'll tell you this, Q, is every time I watch my episode counter go up, I always think about you, because you've been doing this for such a long time. And there's times where I don't feel like doing it. And then I think about our conversation. I think that was maybe episode 150 or something for me, because it was a major landmark. But gosh, we're at 245 now. So first and foremost, thank you for keeping me inspired to keep doing this. And then also thank you for being available today, because we're going to talk about football, specifically college football.
Oh man, I'm excited to be here. It's a pleasure to be back on your show. And I'm glad I can be of inspiration to somebody.
Man, how about this? So last week I reached out to you and said, man, I don't have anything planned for Monday. Well, actually, I did have something, but I really wanted to talk about this, but I didn't want to push it. And I'm glad we waited to this week, because there was so much crazy stuff that happened this last weekend in college football. I mean, wow.
Yeah, last week, I don't know if I've ever seen so many upsets in one weekend. And I was just glad I was able to be on the couch for most of it. And a lot of surprises, man. A lot of surprises from these unranked teams.
Yeah, it's kind of nutty. Big game coming up this weekend. Of course, I'm a diehard Texas Longhorns fan, but I'm also a realistic fan. and I'm pretty critical of my team, but this year and even last year, there's really not much for me to really criticize. I do have my points of concern. Is your team, who's your team?
Well, people never believe me now, but I'm a Michigan fan.
Oh,
Have
okay. I
been
believe you.
since a kid. Yeah. The very
What,
first football game, college football game I can remember was Michigan, Ohio State. And I like the helmets. I mean, you can't deny the helmets.
let's talk about Michigan, Ohio State then, because, rivalries are a big deal. I
Hmm.
am very biased in saying the Texas Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry is the most awesome rivalry in college football. But I'll be honest with you, Michigan, Ohio State for me is like 1B if Texas, Oklahoma is 1A. What are your thoughts on that?
My Actually, my favorite rivalry, I think, or the most intense is the Iron Bowl with Auburn and Alabama. And maybe because of my proximity to Alabama, I know the venom involved in that rivalry. So that would probably be my first one. And then it's a toss up between Texas OU and Michigan Ohio State for me as far as runner up.
You know what's funny is I figured you're going to say the Iron Bowl because depending on where you are in the country, that's going to be a lot of people's number one as well. I was always a
Hmm.
big Florida State, Miami person, but I think what happens
Hmm.
is one team is really good and one team is really bad. It kind of takes away from that a little bit, although it is a rivalry game, so all bets are off as we've seen Auburn play Alabama pretty well, even during Alabama's best run of I don't know of the last 15 years being so dominant. And I would argue they're still dominant, even though they also have some significant holes.
Yeah, yeah. And Auburn does seem to rise to the occasion when they see that maroon come through. And Alabama, I mean, they're Alabama. You expect them to dominate. And every now and then they have those lapses, but you still hate to see them on your schedule.
Have you seen anything recently like Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt?
And yes, I watched that, and I figured Vanderbilt would play them pretty tough. Now, I don't remember what the line was on the game, the gambling line or whatever, but
Right.
I felt like Vandy would cover because this kid they have at quarterback, Diego Pavia from New Mexico. I mean, he's just a fighter. He's just a gritty guy. He's not going to wow anyone as far as being a high draft pick in the NFL or anything, but he's just a football player that just knows how to win. And you have to appreciate those guys. So while I thought he would make it interesting for three quarters, I never thought they would pull off this upset. I mean, Vandy was 0-60 against top
Yes.
five teams, and I don't know if I ever expected anything like this.
Yeah, he kind of gives me Baker Mayfield in college vibes without the attitude. Because Baker Mayfield, just like Kyler Murray that we have out here in Arizona, they're kind of assholes. I always felt, and I don't think I'm not trying to see that as the lens of being a Longhorns fan.
Hmm.
Just in watching them, they always had kind of a little chip on their shoulder and was kind of a jerk about it. And he kind of his stature, I guess, and his play reminded me a lot of Baker Mayfield a little bit. But yeah, I think when you look at that guy, he screams Friday Night Lights college quarterback to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Like probably no
definitely.
future at the next level. I don't know, but based on what I saw last weekend,
I mean, who knows? Maybe he can be a
who knows?
backup or something like that. You never know how these things turn out. But just looking at the guy, like I said, he's definitely just a football player. He can be one of those people who never has to buy anything in the state of Tennessee if he can continue to wow people at Vanderbilt.
Absolutely. It's funny too because I was watching that game, looking at all these upsets, and obviously they're beating the heck out of Alabama. But as Alabama starts creeping up, I think you were thinking this, I was thinking this, the rest of the country was thinking this. Good teams always find a way to pull it out, even when they're playing like crap. And
Right.
they were outpacing them, but it was just too much. And then in the end, when they sealed, they had one first down, then the next first down, then the final first down. I was
Hmm.
thinking, there's no way they're gonna get these first downs. It's just, I don't know. It's crazy to see the, the college kids storm the field, take the goalpost and carry it, I think through downtown or something.
Yeah, threw it in the Cumberland River. And
College. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think sometimes they rush the field a little too often, but this is one time I was okay with it. I mean, you take down the number one team in the country. You've never beaten a top five team before. I was okay with it. It's a little dangerous pulling down the goalpost and storming the field sometimes, but this is one time I would have given them a pass, even though I hear the school got fined quite a bit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say college sports. That's why I love college football. I'm not a big fan of college basketball just because it's so sloppy.
Hmm.
But college sports in general, and I think it goes back to playing the games, like the NCAA college football games, to where you
Hmm.
turn it on, you have a good sound system, and you just get that. You hear the crowd and the cheer and the fight songs, and you just get into it. And it's basically pride versus pride. Obviously, with the nil deal going on right now, it's money versus money, but it's still really to the core pride versus pride. And to me, there's nothing like it. And it's funny because you would say you want your team to win the national championship, but at the same time, you're like, please God, don't win because you're going to destroy the city. That's what the college kids do. They go around and they just flip cars over because they won. And classic case, taking the goalpost and throw it in the river. Like, really?
Yeah, I know. So if you're a fan of a college and you don't live in that city, that's even better.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, they can be destructive, and that's you don't have to give young people an excuse to do anything. I mean, we've both been there before,
Yep.
but you give a knucklehead a reason, and he's going to be a knucklehead.
And it's more of an age thing. On the last episode, I was talking about two kids. One is this influencer who has like 15 million followers and he wrecked his McLaren on a live.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that was the first time I heard that story, by the way.
it's easy to call him an idiot because he is, but he's also 20 years old, right? That's the same demographic that's ripping down goalposts and throw it in the river. And they're not going to do it 10 years from now.
No,
So
no, at least you hope not. But yeah,
you hope not.
you give a kid a McLaren, then all bets are off, that's for sure. But I heard that on your podcast, and that was the first time I heard that story, and that was really crazy. And that the passenger, he really does have a suit on his hand if he wants.
Oh yeah, I mean, people are going to get in. I'm sure it's his boy, and he doesn't want to, give up on him. But the right people are going to get in his ear because, look, man, that I'm not someone to give legal advice, but that was just a bad situation all around. And I guess he was on social media, the driver, the owner of the McLaren, asking people to help him pay for repairing his car. Not like, hey, I was stupid. This never should have happened. And I apologize. And we're so lucky to walk away, which he may have said that
Right.
at some point. But to get on there and ask people to donate to help him pay for the car, which he could probably afford anyway, but that's just to get, some more engagement. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But what are your thoughts on where we're at with the rankings? Because by the time this comes out, there's some big games coming up this weekend. We're recording this on a Tuesday, October 8th. So the Red River Shootout, Red River Rivalry is coming up this Saturday. I
Hmm.
don't know what other huge matchups are coming up, but it seems to be kind of gotcha weekend. What are your thoughts on what's coming up this weekend?
And well, as far as this weekend, I don't think there are a ton of top 25 matchups. Ole Miss and LSU play Saturday evening, and that should be pretty good. I believe both of them are still top 15, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm definitely focused on that Red River rivalry. Pittsburgh and California seems to be an interesting matchup too because of how hard California played Miami last week. They really should have won that game, but that was the case of kind of like you said, the good teams are going to find a way to
Right.
win in the end. And but Pittsburgh's undefeated, so that should be interesting. And then USC really needs to bounce back, and they have Penn State at home. And even though Penn State is ranked number 4 or 5, I know they're top five.
Four.
Um, yeah, having them go on the road to USC is going to be a challenge for Penn State, but USC really has to win that game because the Big Ten is kind of overwhelming them right now.
One other huge game looking at the schedule, Ohio State, Oregon, 2 versus 3.
Oh, I don't know how I forgot that one. Oh, that's the marquee matchup. You're exactly right. I forgot about that. And Dylan Gabriel trying to get a Heisman Trophy, and Ohio State is just a machine. My goodness, they seem to be a wide receiver factory. and they
Right.
have really good running back in Judkins. And man, that's going to be nice. But playing in Oregon, that's going to be tough. Those people get crazy, especially for night games, and Oregon's going to probably break out in some flashy uniform. Man, that's going to be nice.
Right. That's a bowl matchup, essentially. You
Hmm.
would normally never see that unless it was a bowl matchup.
Like, right, Rose Bowl.
What do you think of this kid? Have you paid attention to this kid out of Boise State, this running back?
Yes, Ashton Jaunty, I think his name is,
Yeah.
averages like 9 yards a carry or something ridiculous. That guy, every time he touches the ball, it's a first down or a touchdown. I mean,
Do you
I haven't
think?
seen it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, like most people, I just see his highlights. Um, I don't think just because he goes to I mean, it's a Division I school, you're right. I
Hmm.
mean, just because he goes to a smaller school doesn't mean he's not playing against top talent. But you see his breakaway speed; he could do that against anybody.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, it's like when he touches the ball, it doesn't take much for him to get open. He can just give him 18 inches, he'll hit the hole, and then he's gone. And so his speed is very deceptive. You know he's fast, but the way he gets into the second level is amazing. And it's been a while since I've seen a running back that's just really that talented all around. And I'm hoping to see him against. I don't know what their schedule looks like later in the year. I'm hoping to see him against a Power Five school, and maybe that will be in a bowl game or something like that. But I think the kid is special.
Yeah, I agree. Lightning fast. Ashton
Mhm.
Janti, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Um,
And he has like a 350-yard lead on second place for the rushing title right now, as far as yards. He's just way out in front of everyone.
so I'm looking at this crazy stat here. By halftime of their 63-30 victory, he had 186 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 13 carries. And that was just by halftime. So that's absolute nutty.
Just took the rest of the night off.
Just took the rest of the night off.
Yeah, so that guy, I want to say his lowest game this year was like 150, 160 yards, and he had that at halftime. So if he plays a whole game, he's you can lock him in for 200, 250.
I'd love to see it. I would love to see it. So what are your thoughts? I mean, for the rest of this season, what's going on? What do you predict? It's too early and we'll definitely get together before the end of the season's over. But at this point, week 7, do you expect to see a lot of shakeups moving forward in the top 20, maybe the top 15, because we already know 1 is playing, and that's a rivalry game against Oklahoma. 2 and 3 play each other.
Right.
4 plays this weekend. And then, I mean, the difference between Alabama and Georgia is like 2 or 3 slots, and all that is one game, essentially.
Yeah. I do expect a lot of changes because this NIL transfer portal thing has brought about a lot of parity, and there's not a lot of consistency at some of the bigger schools as we used to see. Of course, 10 years ago, you'll see a class come in and they would be together essentially for 3 or 4 years. But now
Right.
people are leaving left and right, and it's just kind of doing something to the continuity of some of these teams. And so coaching is very important. We're starting to figure out who can actually coach and who actually relies on talent. And so the SEC is still strong, but I think they're vulnerable. The ACC could get quite a few teams in the playoffs just because of how their schedule is set up. Clemson doesn't play Florida State. Southern Methodist is having a really good year, SMU, and they don't play. I'm not Florida State. I'm at Miami.
Right.
We can forget about Florida State.
uh,
Uh, but SMU doesn't have to play Clemson or Miami. So since none of those three teams play each other, all of them could essentially be 8-0, in their conference. And I don't know what's going to happen with the playoffs come, that route. And Notre Dame's going to get back in it because that's what they do. They'll get destroyed in the playoffs, but they'll get back in it. So it's just so much going on. It's a lot of chaos. And I've always been an NFL fan, but this is the first year I can honestly say I'm more excited for college football. Um,
with the
I just
12
think
team
it's,
playoffs.
yeah, yeah. I think that just makes it a lot more interesting. The recent acquisitions of, Texas and Oklahoma, of course, to the SEC, and then USC and Washington going to the Big Ten. I mean, all of that, even though it's virtually destroyed tradition, it's just made it a lot more interesting just for the pure football fan. So I think there's going to be a lot of shakeups in the top 25. But the teams that are in the top 10, a lot of them kind of play each other, especially in the
Right.
SEC. So they probably won't drop out too far if they lose to one another.
Miami is always the biggest hoax, even at 6-0. I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped two, maybe three games before the end of the season.
So yeah, I mean it's possible. Like I said, they should have lost
A
Saturday night,
couple,
or
honestly. There's a couple games they could have lost by now.
yeah, yeah. So I mean it's possible. I'm pretty sure they'll be favored in most games. But right now, Alabama's embarrassed, so I wouldn't want to play them. Georgia's trying to get back on track. And I mean, I don't know where Iowa State has come from. I haven't watched an Iowa State game, but they're like ranked number 11. Yeah, number 11 right now, undefeated. So you have some surprise teams who are going to try to state their case for the playoffs. Indiana is 6-0. I don't know when that's happened in football.
Yeah, Indiana's fool's gold, too. I think as we'll close with this until later on in the season. Texas, obviously being my team, they have a lot of SEC matchups coming up, including the team that just beat Alabama and Vanderbilt. So you can't sleep on anybody in the SEC. But
Mhm.
I would be surprised if they went undefeated, Texas, because again, Oklahoma, I'm never going to talk crap about Oklahoma until after the game. And right after that, they play Georgia. So I
Mm.
think it'd be nice to go 2-0. It'd be nice to split 1-1. Worst case scenario, 0-2 is possible, but I hope not. Last time they played Georgia in a bowl game, they beat Georgia. I know the SEC guys are like, well, Georgia just took the day off, but the Texas and Oklahoma usually play pretty good against out of conference talent traditionally. So we'll see where we're at.
Yeah.
Again, when this comes out, the game will have already happened. So hopefully Texas wins that rivalry. They lost to
Well,
Oklahoma last year.
yeah, I was going to say they're going to have revenge on their mind. So I think I would personally think that Texas has the defense to slow down Oklahoma, and their offense, of course, is great too. I'm not really sold on Oklahoma's offense. I just think it's a little spotty, a little inconsistent at times. But yeah, Oklahoma and Georgia is a tough back to back, and then
Mhm.
going to Vandy. But you also have a tough Kentucky on the schedule, and you get to match up against Texas A&M again for the first time in a long time, I
That's
think.
a big game. That's always a big game. Kentucky's funny too because they always play Georgia close.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of
Yeah.
those weird, awkward things. It's like Texas and TCU back at the Big 12, where TCU was always like right there. But I'll tell you what, Q, I appreciate you being able to come on and talk college football with me. For everybody who's still listening to this episode, thank you. I told you this was coming. I love college football. I love the NFL too, but this is the only time of the year that I will miss a car event for sports.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, Jay.
All right. That's that. Thanks, man. Hopefully all is well.
No problem. Yeah, everything's good on this end, man, and hopefully everything's going well with you and your vehicles. I listened to your podcast, and man, you start talking about radiators and car tires and stuff, man. I get depressed. That stuff is expensive.
Yeah, all my parts are in. Now I went to eBay and I just bought, some of the stuff is good, but I refuse to just buy creme de la creme. It is a
Yeah,
2009 vehicle. And,
yeah.
I could have bought the $300 radiator, but I bought the $70 radiator, and we'll find out a year from now if that was a good decision or not, you know? So
uh, I didn't
fortunately
know
I
you
have
could find a
options.
radiator for
I
$70.
didn't either. I'm like, oh, wait, every other one I'm looking at is like 120. This one's 70 shipped. Okay,
Oh man.
check out. Yeah. So at some point, my son is actually over here fixing his car right now, and he's like, hey, when are you gonna fix your car? I go, dude, at some point between now and Thanksgiving,
Hmm.
because all I'm worried about
Okay.
Saturday is the Red River rivalry, and then I got MC duties all day Sunday.
Oh man, I have a really good friend who's getting married Saturday, but luckily it's at 11, I think. So I'll be home before, any of the big games pop off. But I told him, I said, man, you had to talk to your wife. You could have been married on the 5th or the
Mm-hmm.
19th, not the 12th. Not the 12th.
You're
It's
going to
too
be
many
that guy
games.
in the commercials that are watching the game, the Allstate commercials, or whatever.
Yeah. Luckily, the church where he's getting married is like 4 minutes away. So I'm gonna
Oh,
go
nice.
and I'm dipping, right before the reception. I'm out of there.
That's good, man. Hey, congrats on getting married. Yep, I got to go. Got this thing
Right,
called
right.
football.
Throw three grains of rice and get up out of there.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Q, man. Appreciate you as always.
all right, yeah. Thanks for inviting me, man. And like I said, keep doing your thing, man. I enjoy listening to your show. You're a good storyteller. You're gonna be a great granddad. Well, I guess. Well,
I am a granddad.
okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
I got three
yeah.
and a half.
Oh man. Yeah. So you're gonna be on the porch in a rocking chair with some great stories for him, man.
Oh, yeah. All right, man. I'll talk to you. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy. Bye.
Want to thank Talk to Q for coming on the show and talking some college football. I'm glad we waited because so much crazy stuff happened that weekend. And then this past weekend, Texas beat the shit out of Oklahoma. So I was a happy fan because Texas is my team. And it's one of those deals where if I have a real rooting interest, I don't even want to see a good game. I don't want the game to be close. I want my team to whoop the other team's ass so bad to where I can just sit back, drink, and casually watch the game. I don't want to be on the edge of my seat when my team's victory is at stake. If it's not a team that I have a really rooting interest in, that's when I want to see a great game. I want to see them going back and forth, touchdown, touchdown, if NBA, basket after basket, and I want it coming down to the wire because that makes for great entertainment. But if I have a rooting interest, no thanks. Like I mentioned in the open, did Future Collector Car Show, and it was a great event at Barrett-Jackson. This time they had a cover on the stage because it was really hot. We had chairs up there, and I was able to, with the assistance of the staff, bring vehicle owners up so they can talk about their cars. And that's a little different than in years past or events past, where we used to walk around when I had a co-host, or I would say I was Bogey's co-host. She was the main host. I consider myself the co-host because she has a lot more experience in that field, having a TV show. But she wasn't there this time for whatever reason. I don't know. But I wasn't really nervous about it when I found out I was going to be by myself. But I just started thinking about ways to reinvent the event so that people didn't have to sit there and listen to me talk for 5 hours. And so by filling it with guests in short interviews, it was great. Jack Ultramotive was there again. I don't know if you know who that is. Craig Jackson came up there and talked to everybody. And it was just a great, great event. I almost overslept. I set my alarm and my good friend Josh texted me 6:22 in the morning. Hey man, you still going to meet up with us? We're supposed to meet at 6:15. I was like, oh shit. Yeah, I'll be there in 7 minutes. And so like 15 minutes later, I pulled in. And then, of course, I had to take the Honda Z on the highway because we were already running late. When I swore I didn't want to ever do that again. I made it. Every car was going past me. And I had the thought, and I smiled on the freeway because it's weird having one of the slowest, if not the slowest car on the freeway, and then also having one of the fastest cars you're ever going to see. It's quite the difference. So that's why it was kind of funny to me as I smiled and people were just flying past me. I just put a sticker on the back of the car. It says something like, I'm going as fast as I can. Or relax, my foot is on the floor. Or something. Because my Honda Z it's super slow. A lot of people liked it though. And I think I would do the event again. I know I'd do the event again. If I call her my agent now, Rebecca. If Rebecca asked me to do it, I would 100% do it because she's good people. She's my agent. So if you guys want to book me, you got to book Rebecca. RHN Media. Get a hold of her. So with that being said, I want to thank Ray Honda and Wright Toyota, Toyota of Huntington Beach, Claremont Toyota, and Gardenia Honda. FoilOnline.com, Sales Shop Wireless Services, AutoCannon officially licensed, Honda and Acura Gear, Patreon business supporters, Squee Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida, Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland, Pell Construction out of Caledonia, Michigan, Beak House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia, and Traverse City, Michigan. You join the podcast for as little as $3 a month. I say that all the time. Bonus audio, show swag. So the podcast has its own separate swag line, own cool logo. Special shout out to Mark Stoneman, Catherine Cox, Eddie Ramos, Richard Graves, Byron Jones, Bo Jung, Alice Kamina, Drew Bunkley, and Yasu Chiba. Questions, comments, or concerns, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at Pfenning. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on TikTok at hardparkingjay. Join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. That's a lot of fun. I'm thinking about making some swag for just that group, so we'll see. But I know most people in that group don't even listen to the podcast. So remember, I can't grow without you telling the world how great the show is. Let's do this. Let's grow this thing together. Get those podcast reviews in. I need them. And I will talk to you all next week.
Shut up!